When did you get that?
3 days ago. They'll be here. And I got us some flowers and stuff.
I didn't hear anything about it.
Yeah, I called the city and told everybody that I could.
Well, usually they would put out, they would put out a little, you know, out of the stuff.
So you- Good. Good evening. Today is Monday, December 22nd, 2025. It's 5:30 p.m. Another work session. Just want to let everybody know that the president of City Council, Mark, will be here for the second meeting. If you don't know, his wife was involved in a pretty bad accident. She was she's gotten better. They've removed she was intubated. They've removed that tube and she's doing better. So I talked to Mark, but he won't make it for the work session, but that crazy warrior will be here for the second part of it at 7 o'clock. So just giving everybody a heads up. So what I'd like to do is start with item agenda A. Charis Deeg, Interim Executive Director, Kevin Ortiz, the General Manager of the Public Convention Center, for a 15-minute presentation. And turn your mics on, guys. We're ready to rock and roll.
Awesome. Thank you guys for having us tonight. Merry Christmas. We didn't get a PowerPoint in, but there are packets on your places for that. Sorry, Kevin, if you want to turn that on. And then here's yours for when you go. There you go.
Yes.
So tonight, that's fine. Yeah. Tonight we're here to just update you all on the vendor fee budget. And as you know, the vendor fee has been approved through City Council's budget, but this is a little fuzzy. Is it fuzzy? No. Just want to give a little bit of high level. Vendor fee funds the Convention Center, Memorial Hall, maintenance and operations for Convention Center. And the flow chart that was presented just kind of walks you through the flow of funds through those different trustee accounts and how it works. There is debt for Memorial Hall and Convention Center that is also funded through the vendor fee. And that's basically on a 12-month basis transferred, and the Convention Center O&M is transferred on a 12-month prorated basis as well. Those amounts are listed in that. For 2025, 2026 budget is what we're discussing tonight. The total vendor fee estimate for next year is 2.9 million, and that will be split for the debt service. That's about 888,000, split between the Convention Center and Memorial Hall. That one was refinanced in 2020, so we saved a lot of interest on that refinancing. And then $2 million for the operation and maintenance, split between 1.3 for the Convention Center asset management fee for urban renewal at 350, and repair and maintenance for capital of 271. Also, we budget right at $20,000 for maintenance and Memorial Hall items. And if those items are not spent for Memorial Hall, it does roll into a redemption account, which is available for use for payment of the bonds or future capital needs approved through the city. And so I'll let Kevin take over and talk about the Convention Center's budget just for you all, and take it away.
Yeah, thank you, Cherish. I appreciate the opportunity to chat. We did turn this in, right? So can we put this up or?
They don't have it up.
Oh, they don't. Okay. So this just is a quick little update on who we are and what it is we do. I oversee the Public Convention Center and Memorial Hall. The company that I work for is called Oakview Group, and I just wanted to provide a little bit of information on our company, Oakview Group. We're a full service venue management and event programming company built on the foundation of truly putting our clients first. We've actually managed the property and facility since 1997. During COVID, we were purchased by Oakview Group. Some of you remember us maybe as Comcast Spectacor or Spectra. We're currently on a 10-year contract with Urban Renewal to provide services for the convention center. Also have the same contract to oversee Memorial Hall with the city of Pueblo. We oversee 270 venues across the country, internationally, really. 59 convention centers, 85 arenas, and then several specialty venues throughout the country. Our company is actually headquartered in Denver, so a lot of opportunity to bring in people from our corporate office down here to the Pueblo area, should we need them. But that's just a little bit of information about who Oakview Group is. We truly look at ourselves as the one-stop shop in venue services, right? So there are some different competitors out there that might specialize in food, or they might specialize in venue management. Our company really specializes in everything, from hospitality, food services to booking. If we have some safety concerns at our buildings, we could bring in some people from our company that really specialize in public safety and can do safety audits, whether it's at the convention center or Memorial Hall. Procurement processes, we went through a large transition with our accounting services, and that's being spearheaded by our corporate company as well. So a lot of different opportunities. We've built a lot of relationships with our corporate office, specifically like for buying power. As you recall, when we built the exhibit hall, or when the exhibit hall was built and opened in the mid of 2019, there were some different things that we were able to purchase and save, the Urban Renewal Authority and the Convention Center some money on by utilizing our resources through our corporate company. So again, this really just shows you that we oversee over 270 properties, probably a little bit more. The slide could be a little bit outdated, but we have 85 arenas, 59 convention centers, 21 specialized venues, 16 stadiums, 24 theaters, and 11 fairgrounds. And obviously, we oversee Pueblo Convention Center and Memorial Hall. We also have several others throughout Colorado that our company oversees, that we really work with them on a month-to-month basis to route shows, conferences, different types of events to the community of Pueblo. So the purpose of the Pueblo Convention Center, and our purpose as a partner, is really under the direction of Urban Renewal Authority. OVG strives to generate meaningful economic impact to the city of Pueblo by creating exceptional event experiences for out-of-town visitors and local organizations alike. OVG accomplishes this goal by pursuing events with guests that will stay in hotels, eat in local restaurants, and spend time enjoying downtown Pueblo. We understand that it's important to be involved in the community. So a lot of the individuals that work for the Pueblo Convention Center belong to local boards, or, participate in the different chambers that we have here in town. But really, we try to promote ourselves as a, place for local events, also regional and national events here in our community. This just kind of gives you a really good glimpse of where we were at in terms of gross revenue. And I thought this was important to share, just to show the exponential growth that we've had since 2018. As you're all aware, the exhibit hall opened in, I think it was May of 2019. So construction was happening in 2018. You'll see we did about 1.2 million. What's cool about 2019 is the building was actually closed for the entire month of January for some upgrades that were being done on the ballroom side. We got new carpet, some painting, and some other things that were fixed during that time. And, we were able to do 1.6 million in gross revenue. Obviously, then we were hit by COVID the next year, and that kind of put a damper in our progress. But I think you'll see, after really coming out of COVID, we really hit the ground running, right? And from 2022 all the way through 2024, we had record-breaking years in terms of gross revenue. And you'll also see on the right side of that, just the amount of hotel rooms that are being reported. Please note that these hotel rooms are only being reported directly by the Courtyard Marriott. So there's probably some rooms that aren't being reported in these numbers. But you'll see that really, I mean, from 2022 through 2024, our numbers have increased dramatically in terms of gross revenue. 2025, we'll see a slight dip versus 2024. I mean, we went from 2.8 million to 3.3 million in 2024. As of really today, looking at our projections for 2025, we're still going to have the second best year in terms of gross revenue at 2.8. And right now we're accounting for about 5,200 hotel rooms. So I think some great information to share. I think this also shows the community of Pueblo that the investment into the exhibit hall has really seemed to paid off for the community. It's allowed us to hold bigger events at the convention center, have multiple events going at once. I mean, I think that there's been several of you that have attended event where we have stuff going on in 5 different rooms, right? And we really try to do as much as we can and maximize all the different facilities throughout the convention center. Just real quick, this gives you a little bit of data in your packet of the different types of events. You'll see that our conventions, trade shows, and consumer shows really has increased over the years. You know, for the longest time, we really lived and died by meetings and conferences and banquets, right? Those are a lot of local events. The convention center should really strive to bring in the larger conventions, trade shows, and consumer shows. And I think we've been able to do that over the last several years. I think our partnership with the Chamber and Visit Pueblo and really going out for some of these larger RFPs have found to be beneficial to the operation. And we've been able to land some pretty big accounts. So this just gives you a little bit of an update on what that looks like. So as Cherish mentioned, our budget for 2026 really incorporates a few different things. So when we submit our budget to Urban Renewal, we're held accountable for a certain number because obviously the vendor fee, there's more to it than just our budget, right? There's the debt service, there's a few other things that Urban Renewal is responsible for paying out of the vendor's fee. But for us, we have an operational budget of basically a little over $1 million. And then below that, you'll see that we have the parking garage, which is, you know, being paid out of the vendor's fee, which is across the street from the convention center and was built during the expansion of the exhibit hall. And then the Da Vinci, you'll see that we have about $80,000 in there. I put PBR in there because people still refer to it, you know, as that portion of the building, but that just basically covers the utilities and some of the overhead that comes with, you know, being, I guess, just overseeing that portion of the building for Urban Renewal. So like if there's any maintenance issues or anything like that, it hits that number. And then, you know, capital expenses. So some of the things that we've really worked on, I hope you guys have noticed, is the landscape specifically around the facility. We've done a lot of work in terms of landscaping that really hadn't been done for over 25 plus years. And we're seeing a big difference in that. So the overall subsidy with some of those different areas comes to the 1.6, which is pretty in line with, you know, the last several years. So really this kind of gives you a high level overview of our fiscal year 2026. We do think that business will probably level off a little bit in 2026. I don't know that we'll see that 3.3 million a year again, you know, next year. And again, you know, it's kind of been an abnormal 3 or 4 years because every year our gross revenue has gone up and up and up. So at some point, it's going to level off. And based off of the business that we're booking going into 2026, we think that this will be that year. So we're projecting, I think it's, looking a little bit at 2.6 million in gross revenue going into next year. With that, I'll stand for any questions on the convention center budget or operation in general.
Counselors, any questions? Comment? Counselor Mashmashi.
Kevin, a couple of years back, we gave you some ARPA dollars, I believe, to upgrade your technology for virtual convention conference kind of stuff. Did you guys ever put that to use? And I thought you came in with a whole presentation about upgrading the technology so that you could, because it was just right after COVID, so
Sure.
everybody was looking for an idea
Right.
moving forward.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I can't recall the exact dollar amount or
Mhm.
what we were actually awarded. But as part of our year-to-year capital, we do update our AV. Yeah, I could get you some information on that. I can't recall it, if we did receive a final dollar amount, and if so, what that was. We update AV technology needs to be updated year after year,
Mhm.
right? And if we don't, our competition up north really kind of, takes over that game. I feel like we've done that over the last several years. I think one of the things maybe that you're recalling, we were trying to really kind of be in the game of like remote technology for like remote type of meetings.
Mhm.
Because at the time, like no one was really versed in Teams or Zoom meetings, right? It didn't
Mhm.
happen very often. So yes, now that I'm talking, I do recall that a little bit more. We were able to get a lot of that technology to really help not just our larger conventions, but really our smaller meetings.
Mhm.
So for example, if Urban Renewal has their monthly meeting at our venue, then we could really host people that are not in the state of being there at that
Mhm.
facility at that time. So we're constantly doing that. I think in our capital plan for next year, we'll want to increase some more of our AV again,
Mhm.
computers, projectors, different things like that can, tend to go, outdated
Mhm.
quickly. So
Yeah, because that you were saying it was gonna help at the time,
yeah.
help bring in more business and so forth. And I was wondering how that worked out for you.
No, I think that's a fair question. I think just looking at those numbers, to do almost like 1.2 million when you had to operate on restrictions and, I think we were even closed for several of those months. So just being super creative and being
Mhm.
able to, still host events was a big deal for us. I think going back to that time frame specifically, one of the things I think we're probably most proud of is the fact that like we didn't ever ask for any additional funds. We were able to stay within the vendor fee operating budget, right?
Mhm.
So, even though that was a tough time for live entertainment and live events, we were able to stay within kind of the vendor fee, funds that we get to operate the convention center.
Mhm. Okay, thank you.
Okay, great. And Council Flores, please.
Do you see the trajectory of, it just seems like we've had an explosion of an increase in revenue for the last 3 years. And what does 26 hold? Because I know a lot of conventions pre-book that for the 26.
Yeah, to be quite honest, we're not seeing as many conventions as we've had over the last 2 years, particularly because we are on rotation for some of these larger state conventions. So if you look at 2024, one might think, my gosh, how'd you guys do 3.3 million and the year before it was like almost a million less, right? I think a big part of that has to do, we just were in line with a lot of our state organizations having their large events in the same year. Not to take away from what our sales team has been able to accomplish. I think they've done a really good job in terms of attracting new business. You know, as I've kind of mentioned in this meeting before, you know, one of the biggest areas of opportunity for us continues to be hotel room nights. We actually had a really good call today with CSU Pueblo, and they have some units on site that they're trying to reimagine. And so there may be some opportunity to utilize some of those rooms for potential guests coming into our community with some transportation service. So we're working on, you know, those types of things. Also kind of in the recent weeks, I've had some dialogue with the Art Center. So if, you know, a larger convention wanted to come to town and we didn't have the space, we'd be able to partner with them and accommodate additional space across the street. Because what we have found over the last, you know, few years, some of the events that we have had have outgrown our space because their business continues to grow. And so if we could figure out ways to partner and collaborate with other organizations to, you know, i.e. like the Boathouse coming online, there might be some opportunities there. Obviously the Art Center, you know, and so if we could continue just to think outside the box, I feel like our business will continue to grow.
I noticed that your company also handles fairgrounds. Have you guys ever bid on the Colorado State Fair?
I think prior to my time, there's been some discussions. It's funny you say that. So I'm a district general manager and I oversee a fairgrounds in New Mexico as well. I have talked with the general manager at the Colorado State Fair, and I do think that there's some opportunities for some partnership down the road when they have some contracts that expire. So we're always thirsting to grow, right? And I think that if there's that opportunity, we would definitely jump on it. Our company, Oakview Group, has grown exponentially over the last, you know, 5 to 6 years, and we are probably, if not one of the biggest venue management company internationally.
My thought is that you guys would do such a better job than what's happening now, in my opinion. And I'm focused on entertainment. I think that you could bring a slate of entertainment that would look a lot different than we see it now. And I think you would produce a lot more revenue just because of the impact and the power you have in entertainment right now.
Sure.
Some of the acts that have been brought here to Memorial Hall, you know, with a limitation or capacity, you know, that their event center holds probably over 4,000 people.
Right.
And they would be wise, I guess,
Yeah.
in utilizing you, even if it's just part of or all of the entertainment. I think you would do a much better job. So if you
Appreciate that.
ever need a reference,
Yeah, I
let me know.
appreciate that.
I'm there to do it. But anyway, thank you for the good work you do at the convention center.
Thank you.
I'm always impressed as a member, well, as a previous member of Urban Renewal, of how you manage the place. And I think one of the greatest assets that we have here, and you have, is your food. And I think that really makes that convention center very unique in that your presentation of food, the quality of the food, you hardly ever see a complaint, and I congratulate you for that.
Yeah, no, we have a great team. I think, you know, just to kind of keep it short, you know, one of the issues when I got the opportunity to become the general manager was there was kind of a revolving door in some of our key positions, right? And, you know, I'm happy to announce that since really 2019, we've had very limited turnover in our key positions. Specifically, our chefs have been with us. And, you know, for those that sit on the dais that are aware, you know, food is tough, especially when you're feeding 400 to 500 people. Consistency, you know, is always key to being successful. And, you know, I try to embody that into our team. So they've done a great job, and our results wouldn't be what they are if we didn't have a good team in place.
Thank you.
Councilor Latino.
Yes. Mr. Ortiz, I want to commend you. The leadership at the top is where it starts. That's where it starts. And you have that mantra, you know, you have that ability, that great ability to lead. I've seen you and I respect you and I appreciate what you do.
Thank you.
So I'm very, I feel very blessed that this community has someone of your caliber running that operation. God
Appreciate
bless
that.
you.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Council Maestri, then Council Martinez.
So I noticed, am I reading this correctly? You have like about a anticipated $30,000 deficit on your budget?
Which line item are you looking at?
I'm looking at, under fiscal 2026, your proposed budget for 2026.
Uh-huh.
But you have your total gross revenue and then your expenses are more than your anticipated revenue.
Yeah, I mean, the convention center is a loss leader. That's pretty normal. You know, we're losing the money. The actual loss, the net operation is the 1.97235. That's with basically all of the revenues and expenses.
It's everything.
Yep. So majority of that's coming from, you know, a lot of it comes from overhead. I mean, I
Mhm.
think if you compare our Black Hills energy rates
Mhm.
compared to some of our other venues across the nation, we are by far, you know, some of the highest rates. And then that demand charge, I think we've talked about before, you know, here that we get hit with a pretty good demand charge. I think we're paying close to, it's like $36,000 a month on utilities.
Mhm.
So that's a big part of that.
It's like a third.
Yeah.
Mhm. And what is, so these losses that you have over here to the far right, give me an example of what are you anticipating on the 80,400 for the Da Vinci?
That's purely utilities,
Utilities.
utility costs and maybe some maintenance costs that will arise throughout the course of the year. So Urban Renewal still owns the building and, you know, as their, I guess, majority partner, we handle all of that in terms of the maintenance. So, you know, if the Da Vinci has an issue with like a leak or, you know, an issue
Mhm.
with air conditioning, we as Oakview Group provide service for that. And so that all hits that line item.
So their lease amount that they pay doesn't go back into your revenue source though to cover those expenses?
The lease revenue from Da Vinci will go to the convention center to cover any expenses, but the first year was waived. So partial year for 2026 is still free rent to Da Vinci. I believe it'll start in June, at the end of June, so 1st of July, the revenue for the rent will start flowing to the convention center. So yes, it will offset.
Did you have it in the proposed budget from July 2026 on?
It's offset. I think that that's just the deficit. So that's what we expect to have potential expenses for the utilities for the portion that's not covered by rent.
Yeah, these are based off historical numbers and our finance director has a pretty good handle on what those are. You know, obviously there's a little bit difference in terms of what was in there versus what's going to be in there.
Mhm.
So I mean, these could potentially fluctuate a little for the better or for the worse, depending on, you know, the type of things that are going into that facility. But again, I think we're budgeted appropriately to manage those things. I will tell you, one great thing about the Da Vinci is that like they're willing to, you know, partner and potentially bring, you know, some flair to what we do at the convention center. And what I mean by that is it allows us to really kind of talk about what they're offering to potential convention, you know, bidders that are bidding on different facilities around the region. I think it's going to make our building unique, and I think it's going to offer us opportunity to attract additional business in the future.
So what, going back to what you were saying, Cherish, is the 80,000 is what's left over after they pay their lease?
Yeah, it's the
amount?
net. Yeah, net between the revenue and the expense.
So they're leasing it for less than what we pay in utilities? 'Cause I
It
didn't
could
think
be,
so.
yes, we're estimating that it will be. Plus,
Mhm.
there are 6 months of the year that has abated or waived rent for it was for a full year. Commencement of that lease was June 30th of 2025. So June 30th, 2026, we'll start the rental rate for Da Vinci. So yes, we do believe that the utilities at this moment will exceed or at least equal the rent for the rest of the year, but we're not sure. This is the very first year. So.
All right, thank you.
Mhm.
Councilman Teams.
Thanks, Kevin. Thanks, Cherish, for that presentation. I have a couple of questions. My first question, first of all, I didn't realize that you were a district GM, so that's exciting.
Thanks.
When you're looking at the other spaces that you manage, Kevin,
Mhm.
so, seeing a trending downward for gross sales and then hotel rooms generated, are you seeing that across all of the different event spaces that you manage, or is it just here?
I think it's I guess, the question's a little bit open-ended, and let me tell you why. Yes, the answer is yes. The short answer is yes, and that like we're seeing some of that. I think, obviously the government shutdown and some of the spending cuts maybe to some of these regional type of businesses have had an impact into overall numbers. I think the difference for our community is that we have a new asset, right? That was built and opened in 2019 with the exhibit hall. Then we went right into COVID and we weren't really too sure in terms of what the identity of that facility was. I think over the last few years, we have seen that, right? So I think too, if you go back and look at the original RTA and maybe what that piece of real estate was going to be utilized for and what we're actually utilizing it for, I wouldn't say is totally different, but there's probably some concepts that we've put into place that are different from what the original was. And what I mean by that, it took us about a year to really kind of understand what the best use for that facility would be. At the time we didn't have like removable carpet, right? It was a traditional exhibit hall. Now it's one of our leading, rooms for large events like UC Health, Parkview had their annual gala in there, and it was awesome, right? They put the carpet down, and it really turns that ambiance into like a ballroom atmosphere. The next week, we're able to take that carpet out and use it for an MMA fight or a dance competition. So being able to do those types of things has really helped, I think, show that that asset is valuable to the organization. I just think that we're finally starting to see a level off, really kind of coming out of COVID. We've seen exponential growth between our facilities. But, I do think that a community's, in any community really, like, there's a lot that kind of goes into play in terms of the numbers, right? Downtown Pueblo, if they continue to invest in the infrastructure and landscape and, making this really a community that people want to come into, then I think those numbers will continue to go up. I think that for those, communities that don't invest into their downtown area, you see those numbers kind of going down. Also, what role does your CVB play into your venue and how are they helping you attract different, pieces of business? There's been times where I've seen Visit Pueblo come in here and tout some of the events that they've been able to bring to the community. And I would agree with that. They've done a great job in helping us attract some of these larger events. Some of the people on the dais too, whether it's at the city or the county, you might belong to a state association of some sort. I think of like the county clerks, for example. They've had their state event here. So, a lot of times these events just happen to align on the same year and it really attracts, good numbers for us. And then, in some other years they're on rotation. So some of these events might not happen, every single year. And, unfortunately going into next year, there was 3 or 4 pretty big events that won't be coming back. And so that played a role into our budget for next year.
Hmm.
So.
I have one more question. So the fiscal year 26 budget proposal, the 1 point, so let's just say like the 1 million-ish, 1.1 million-ish, that's the net operation income loss.
Yep.
Is that then made whole by RTA funds?
Through the vendor fee.
Vendor fee.
Vendor fee?
So basically what happens is, as I explained earlier, and Cherish, you could speak more to this if you like, but Urban Renewal gives us a number after they're paying all of their different obligations on what we have left to operate the facility on. So we take that number and we create our budget around, the number that's being left over from the vendor fee to operate and run the convention center.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay, Council Flores.
I don't have a question, but I wanted to be sure the public understood that even though you show continually you show a loss because you are subsidized, that the economic impact that the convention has within the city. There was a study that you guys did, and I don't remember his last name. His first name was Nick. He had indicated in 2022 that up until that year, the convention center had had about a $350 million impact in the community when you compile room rate, the room rentals, the amount of restaurants, the food that you serve in the convention center. So people have to understand how this model works, that in most cities, their convention centers are losing money.
That is
And
correct.
that's okay because it's producing a lot of tax revenue as a result of specifically food and room rentals. So that model has to be understood in order to ever criticize your financial statements because it's intended to be that way. And then, but you've brought our loss down over the last 3 years substantially.
Yeah, I think it's, important for the community to know, one, yes, a lot of these facilities across the country do lose, money. And they have something in place in terms of a funding mechanism like the vendor's fee to offset, the loss. It's losing it in a responsible manner, right? And I think that's what our company really preaches to us. I think that you could see that we've done that with our gross revenue increases over the years. And I do think that, the convention center is really a marketing engine for our community. There's so many regional and even national events that come into our community that really have never been off I-25, or if they have, it's been a lot of years. And, the response that I get is, my gosh, you guys have so much to offer in your community downtown. And, we didn't know about these restaurants and the Riverwalk and whatever it is, right? It seems like they're always thrilled. So I do think that a lot of, the different state conventions and associations that we're able to bring to our community at the convention center play a vital role in some, potential opportunities, whether it's to spend money and create city sales tax or to potentially want to do future business with us for sure.
Okay, any other counselors? You guys, anything else? I think we're good.
Thanks.
Thank you, guys. Next up, we've got blight removal. Section 108 loan guarantee. Melissa Cook, Director of Department of Housing and Citizen Services. It's a 15-minute presentation.
Good evening, Council. Give me just 1 second while we load our presentation here. So as the presentation's loading, I'll get started. The reason that we are having this work session tonight is because on first reading tonight, and of course on second reading on January 12th, are a combination of a few things with our CDBG plans. But located in one of those plans is something quite substantial that I wanted to make sure everybody was aware of what it is that we're looking at doing. And so let's see. Oh, hold on. Okay, so as that's loading, the Housing and Citizen Services, of course, works with HUD, the Federal Government Housing and Urban Development. And we have two major grants. The first one is the Community Development Block Grant, where we receive roughly $1.5 million annually for, and then the Home Investment Partnership, which we receive about $1 million annually for. Each of those have got different governing documents. And because it's a HUD program, those governing documents generally have a lot of public participation involved. So there's a strategic 5-year plan, which is, there we go. We're going to go back because I was just trying to remember my slides. But the strategic 5-year plan, that is really a document that doesn't talk necessarily about individual dollar amounts, but how we will be spending our funds. And it looks at priorities over a 5-year period. And then every year we have to submit what's called an annual action plan. Oh, go ahead.
We don't see that like that on our screen. We're looking at a screensaver.
What's great? This great thing.
Do you guys want me to wait or? Okay. Great. So yeah, the annual action plan is submitted every year, and that is what will actually determine the ways that the funding is spent. And so for the most part, what we are looking at doing and what's on first reading tonight, I'm not going to get into everything, but I'm going to be talking about one of the major priorities that we are adding because it is very significant. So to go backwards, we all know that blight is a large problem within our community, both the residential blight and the commercial blight, something that we've sat here and talked many nights about how to fix it. Right now, we did an inventory earlier this year. And at that point, there were over 60 homes that needed to be demolished. There were about 230 homes that we could rehabilitate. And we are just talking about residential single family. We know that they're an attractive nuisance, and we know that more homes are becoming uninhabitable every day than we are able to demolish with our CDBG grant. We're only able to do a few a year. And so additionally, we know that we've already talked about this, but there is no natural market solution. Folks who have obtained or paid the tax bills on them are not enforcing them because it is not a good investment to actually enforce those. Our federal pass-through dollars are limited, and the cost to demolish these in some cases is much over $100,000 per home, but on average is roughly $100,000 per home. And so in those guiding documents, as I mentioned earlier, the consolidated plan is a 5-year plan, and then each of the action plans for each year just outlines the funding that will be done in each of those years. What we are talking about tonight is the significant amendment to the 5-year action plan, and it will add a loan, that the city will take a loan as one of our priorities. All that this is doing is allowing the city to further explore the loan opportunity. And I want to be very clear that what we are looking at passing on first reading tonight and on the 12th of January doesn't actually obligate the city to any additional debt. It just adds this loan or this loan application as a potential priority. We cannot even further explore this opportunity without this first being as a priority within our plan. And so that's really all that this is doing. But again, I wanted to talk about it because it is something substantial. I wanted to make sure that anybody who saw this in our plan, understood what it was. So looking backwards, since I've been with the city for about a year, we've really been trying to figure out how to solve this. The first thing that we did for these residential blighted homes that need to be demolished is we said, well, what if we just use all of our CDBG funds? What if we put our $1.5 million annually to it for, let's say, 5 years? We could solve the problem. The issue with that is that we can't do that. So HUD says we can only put a certain percentage towards demolitions that do not have a direct impact for a low to moderate income household. So that wouldn't work. We looked at the city's allocation of private activity bonds. We receive about $7.5 million annually in private activity bond allocations. We could not find a viable way to make that work. In order for a private activity bond to actually be underwritten, first of all, it has to be privately held and it has to underwrite, and you have to have a way to pay back the debt service on that bond. That's not something that we were able to identify or work out as of this point on how we could do that. So that's not going to work. We even looked into different ways to raise capital, like a certificate of participation. While that's still an opportunity, I don't think that that's not an opportunity that doesn't impact the general fund, which is really what our goal here is. And so that brings us to this great program that HUD offers, and they offer a loan guarantee program. So what is this loan guarantee program? It is intended for CDBG recipients, our entitlement jurisdictions, just like the city of Pueblo is. And it allows us to borrow from HUD up to 5 times our annual CDBG allocation, which in this case, based on 2025's numbers, is $7.1 million. And rather than using any sort of general funds, if we could not identify a way to pay it back, we can actually pledge our future CDBG funding in future years to help pay for those debt service payments. And so this is a very viable solution to actually demolish all of our residential blight and some of our commercial blight in one clean swoop, one project that is just done at once, rather than doing it kind of piecemeal like we have been doing. So a little bit more about this loan guarantee program. The interest rate is great. They actually take the rolling 3-month Treasury auction bill rate, which as of Friday was 3.53%. They add an additional 35 basis points on that, which means that the interest rate as of today is 3.88%. It is a rolling rate, which means that it would change frequently. So we would be subjected to the market. But anybody who understands these Treasury rates are always the lowest. When we looked at this a few months ago, the current interest rate, which included the additional basis points, was still in the low 4s, and that was when we were at the peak of the interest rates. We've identified 60 homes. With economies of scale, we think that we could get the average demolition price down a little bit. So these are very, very rough numbers. I want to preface this with that. But if we were to demolish all 60 of those homes, assuming that they were $90,000 each, and we did them all at one time, we would have a annual debt service payment of under $400,000. Again, that could be paid for out of our CDBG funding, but we definitely think this is a great way to go. On top of that, we don't want to just pledge all of our CDBG funds. It's really important to us to try to find ways to offset some of this debt service that we would be able to use for the annual payments, and we could retain some of our CDBG funding, or the majority of our CDBG funding, I should say. So we are working with our partners at the Pueblo Urban Renewal Authority. Of the properties that we're looking at demolishing, most of them are actually within existing urban renewal districts. Some of them are in the Colorado Smelter site, which is the newest district, or one of their newer districts, and it's really in the infancy. And so we're really looking at targeting these areas that are in these urban renewal districts first. And we're hopeful that that will then, of course, create some sort of tax increment for financing in the future to be able to then put towards the debt service payment, thus lowering the general impact to the CDBG allocation annually. So a brief timeline, if we were to move forward with this, we're in the planning phase right now. We expect to be in the planning phase through February of 2026. One of the things that needs to happen through that planning phase is to add this as a priority in our 5-year consolidated plan in order to even open up the application with HUD. Assuming that this is approved, we would immediately start working with our HUD reps to then apply in March or spring or so of 2026. We would hopefully have a program launch later in 2026 with demolition starting in Q2 of 2027. Once demolished, by the end of the end of 2027, we would then go into a rebuild phase. We don't know exactly what this necessarily looks like yet, but if we have 60 lots or so that the city then has ownership of, we would probably want to offer those to some sort of developer to redevelop them. Could be in individual projects, it could be in one larger project. But this is the general idea of what we're trying to do. I know that this is a very high level plan. It doesn't give you a ton of details. That's where we are in this because we are still in the planning phase. And the reason, again, for my being here tonight is simply to explain to you what this is. I didn't want anybody to look at, the ordinance on January 12th and see that we are trying to apply for $7.5 million in debt, because that's not what we're doing. We are simply adding that as a priority. Once we actually went through with this, that would be a whole other council action that would have to come to before council. I think that's it. What questions do you all have for me?
Council Flores.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out the principal debt that the city will have. You mentioned that our obligation is just to pay the interest on an annual basis. Did I see that right on the chart? If you could go back to that, to the.
Yeah, it is not interest only. That is principal and
It
the
is both.
interest. Yeah.
Okay, all right, yeah. So that's and that's based on what, 30 years?
Yeah, sorry, that was not included in this presentation. It is actually a 20-year amortization that they offer up to a 20-year. So again, we've not done this. These are very preliminary numbers. I did put some asterisks down at the bottom that some of the assumptions that were used, and this doesn't include soft costs. There's going to be some additional soft costs. We know that. We just don't know how much of those we can absorb in-house versus, that we would actually have to pull into the principal amount of the project. So again, in the early phases of this.
So let's assume in 27, we have 10 lots available. And are we going to try to sell those lots to a developer to build something? And will we at that time recoup any of our costs in the sale of that lot?
We will not recoup any substantial costs. Any costs that we do recoup, I think that it would be wise to put back towards the principal debt. But that is the problem, and that's why you need some sort of intervention just like this, because each of those properties are upside down by about the cost of the demolition. Residential single family lot, especially when you were talking about some of those smaller lots in some of our older neighborhoods, they just don't have any sort of significant value. Generally, they're under $10,000. So if we did sell the lot for $7,000 or $10,000, then I think the answer is yes, we would, and we would likely put those dollars back to the principal payment, but we don't necessarily have that spelled out just yet.
What I like about this model is that instead of waiting every year for $1 million, whatever we get from CDGB, $1.5 million, we could wait forever in order to do the same thing that we can do by doing it now.
Mm-hmm.
And then just kind of having all the money to do it all at once. And I'm assuming that there would be some incentive for a contractor to take on a lot like this once it's cleaned up. You've got the infrastructure. In some cases, we might want to give them the lot or sell it for 5 or 10. Yeah. And it becomes really a catalyst for building new housing. So I like this model. It holds a lot of potential. Thank you.
Council Maestri.
Melissa, of the 60 lots, have we already acquired ownership of those lots, or is that still a process need to take place in order for the city to have ownership over those lots?
Yeah, so we would not have ownership of those lots initially, but that is something that we would wrap into the project costs of this. So the way that it works, if there is a property that has been burnt down and needs to be demolished, we would work with either our partners at the Urban Renewal Authority or the building department to issue the condemnation notices and ultimately the demolition notice. We know in almost all of these situations, there is no responsive owner, and so nobody's going to respond and demolish the property. That is when the city can then go in and demolish property on a privately held lot. And then we would put a lien on that property.
Correct.
The mechanism in order to actually have the city regain ownership would be to enforce that lien. And so that's going to take time. We know that's going to take time. And so if it's the end of 2027, when we're able to get all of these properties demolished, because even just the condemnation and the demolition, that all takes a lot of time as well. It may be a full another year before we gain ownership, and we may be talking about a 2029 housing project.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yes, so they would still, we would just be leaning it at that point, and then we'd still have to go through the foreclosure process or something similar to that in order to gain ownership.
Correct.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Council Latino, you good? Good? Okay. Good, Melissa. Thank you, Melissa. Mr. Pedrosa. Okay, we've got formal, airport renovation, Greg Pedrosa, Director of Aviation, 15-minute presentation. Throw your mic on there, Greg.
Thank you, sir. I have some handouts for you folks.
Okay.
Take one down, pass it around.
Thank you.
That's it. Sure. And supposedly there's a PowerPoint to go along with tonight's presentation. So the slides are there for you, and I left you a little room there for jotting down any notes or questions. So you can follow along as I go. So good evening, Mr. Chair, councilors, mayor. Last year around this time, I provided an airport update regarding a terminal renovation project. So a lot of this is going to seem like deja vu for those of you who had seen it, who have seen this already. I dusted it off and updated it as I needed to. But I also want to make note, and hopefully it's appropriate, Mr. Chair, that I acknowledge the incoming counselors who are in the audience tonight. This is also somewhat for their benefit as well. So thank you, sir. Tonight, work session presentation will set the table for two ordinance that come before you for first reading during tonight's council session. Let's see if I can figure this out. Yep. So we're going to start with a brief history of how this project got started. What are some of the details and how we hope to see it realized? So this project in and of itself is going to be a terminal expansion, interior and exterior renovations. That'll include some ADA accessibility, safety and improved some safety considerations and improved passenger experience. So we'll start with the ARPA and CARES Act grants that were provided to airports around the time of COVID to get us through the pandemic time there. In 2020, the FAA provided airports with various COVID-related relief grants. Approximately $1 million a year was allocated to our airport to assist in the expenses of operating the airport through the pandemic. We decided the easiest and most efficient way to capture these funds was through payroll reimbursement. So we sent invoices to the FAA saying what it cost us to keep the airport open through the pandemic, and the FAA then reimbursed us back those payroll expenses. In 2022, we set aside some of the reimbursed funds into a design project to explore terminal renovation. The biggest issue was expanding the TSA hold room to include restrooms in the secure waiting area. So the next few slides are examples of what our terminal looks like today. So you're seeing here that on the left side is our waiting area. After folks get their ticket, they wait there to go through the glass doors through TSA security screening. And then once they pass through TSA security, they find themselves in the concourse there waiting to board the aircraft. Our restrooms are on the terminal side, so they're before TSA. Not in that concourse area. I just want to be clear there. And as you can see, the restrooms are just a little bit inefficient. The faucets, fixtures are all outdated. The outdated carpet walls that line the entryway there, not very welcoming. Old tiles on the floor and in the ceilings. They are in dire need of an update for appearance and ADA compliance. Here's some photos of the front and the back of what our airport currently looks like now. The outdated stucco in the rear and the front are a maintenance headache. A lot of leaks get there as the come into the walls as the stucco deteriorates and peels off in sometimes chunks. Inefficient glass walls just make it a energy nightmare. I like to remind us that our airport is charming, but it's a bit outdated. Uh-oh. I broke it. Slide, please, if you can. Okay, the next few slides are the proposed update. You'll see the top photo there is the current condition, and the other side there is the artist rendering of what we feel the project can accomplish. A new welcoming sidewalk in front, a modern updated look, safety and ADA considerations with ramps, sidewalks, and safety bollards, an awning for protection of weather, snow, sun, etc. Slide. Again, another front angle with the protection bollards, wider drop-off pickup lanes, more passenger friendly, specifically for those with ADA needs, baggage concerns, larger families, and things of that nature to just provide a safe area to load or unload from the vehicles. Slide. On the backside, as you can see up on the top picture is what our current condition with the outdated stucco. We want a more welcoming look to passengers arriving to Pueblo. A lot of time, the airport is the first impression for visitors and business travelers. We need to have a building that we are proud of and provides a sense of forward thinking and modernization. That is especially important for an airport. Slide. As I mentioned before, expanding the TSA hold room is the primary focus of this project. Increasing the hold room size is important to accommodate larger aircraft with an increased passenger load. The current FAA administration is putting an emphasis on the positive passenger experience. This will help us to provide that. The travel experience should be comfortable and memorable for the right reasons. In this bottom photo on this slide, imagine the restrooms would be at the center of the picture there in the back far corner there. Restrooms on that side in the waiting area past TSA. Currently, if you go through TSA and there's any kind of delay or any kind of like kids have to go potty again, they have to go out back into the terminal near the restaurant, use the facilities, and then come back through a full TSA process again, screening, potential private screening if you get the VIP treatment. Next slide, please. Thank you. Upgrades to the interior of the terminal are also considered in this project, mostly interior design upgrades, again, to modernize the feel and comfort of our airport. So these are current slides. Next one, please. I'll go quick through these. We've seen these before. For the interior, the architects took a look at other areas of Pueblo and tried to incorporate the same feel for the airport. Slide. We also want to include other design aspects from the Southwest region that Colorado lives in. So slide. This project proposes new rugs, tiles, wall art, etc., with these color schemes in mind. Slide. And while this is not an actual photo of our airport space, this is a general idea of what our flooring, furniture, and walls could be upgraded to. Just that same feel and modernization. Here are other examples for you to look at your leisure of different furniture upgrade possibilities. We really feel like going modern, updated, all of those vibes that kind of jive with modern technology and aviation feel. Slide. Okay, thank you. This slide shows the proposed flooring for the different terminal areas. Again, getting a consistent moving from the terracotta tiles, which understand are beautiful. They're just hard to maintain, but we want to get a more consistent look throughout the terminal building, which is consistent to what other airports look like. We want to kind of fall in step with what other airports are doing. Slide. So additional items of this scope of work are going to address some safety concerns. Even flooring, we want to try to remove some trip hazards where our terminal has been renovated multiple times over the years. So there's some transition spots where it goes from carpet to tile to older tile to heaving concrete where a sidewalk used to be. So we feel like this would be a good opportunity to remove some of those trip hazards, make it a little more safe for our users. This project also includes a fire suppression system, a sprinkler system installed throughout the terminal and into the upstairs administrative offices. Up till now, the code has not been considered for our fire safety needs. Adding on this additional concourse space will then put us over the threshold of capacity. So we will need to have fire suppression system, which in my opinion has been needed for some time now to make sure all of our users and our tenants are safe in the terminal building. We also are including security for all airfield access doors, which is a TSA requirement, and additional foundation repair for sagging exterior wall. Slide. For council's consideration tonight are two ordinances to collect funding and establish an airport renovation project. Ordinance 1 will take 1.7 million from the City Council and Department Relocation Project, otherwise known as the Wells Fargo Building, and I believe that was established a few years back. And then Ordinance 2 will ask for 4.28 million approximately from half-cent sales tax for a total project allocation of approximately $6 million. So the design is ready. It's sitting on my shelf, and we've had this discussion before in the past. We paid an architect to get that design ready for us. We were just looking for alternate ways to get this funded. The FAA did provide an opportunity to apply for highly competitive airport terminal renovation project funds. We struck out 4 years in a row. So I do want to thank the mayor and our leadership team and our folks here that have supported the airport to find this other alternate option to potentially fund this much needed airport renovation. So included in your packet is an airport economic impact study put together every 5 years by CDOT Aeronautics. This study found that Pueblo Memorial Airport contributes 226.1 million total business revenues into our community and the Southern Colorado region. It is my belief that our airport can be an asset, and it is time for us to invest in ourselves. The airport can and should be used as an economic driver to bring businesses and workforce to Pueblo. This concludes my presentation. I'm available for questions. And Mr. Chair, again, if it's appropriate, I would also like to ask if there are any questions from the incoming council members in the audience, if they have opportunity to say hello as well. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Councilor Maestri.
How do you feel about all this talk about the fast rail? You know, because if they put the fast rail in, that would affect you tremendously.
Certainly. And I appreciate the opportunity to be involved with some of those meetings early on. As a citizen of Pueblo and just a person who wouldn't mind going to Denver in a hop, skip and a jump, I think I'm for it. I would appreciate it. And I think we would still have our users. You know, there's just certain people that need to fly, and making a connection in Denver may not necessarily be as easy through that high-speed rail if it's making stops and it's going, you know, other places other than the airport. But the airport is, I think, has been considered, or even the Metro Rail station, to keep that connectivity in Denver. But I think at the end of it, there's still going to be people who want to fly and who want to get on an airplane in Pueblo, get up to Denver, make their connection, and get where they want to be.
Is that the only place they're flying to is Denver?
Right now, yes.
Direct flight to Denver.
But if you remember, when we had that opportunity to solicit for essential air service bids, we had a few other airlines that were considering going to Las Vegas, Phoenix, and or Albuquerque. So there's an uptick in interest in our airport and our community to partner for airlines to go in different directions.
Mhm. So in the last bid, there were proposals with those other additional.
Correct.
And who did we end up choosing?
Denver Air Connection, to keep us connected just to Denver for their
Just the
bid.
Denver Air
Correct.
Connection. Mhm. And the funds from the Wells Fargo building, I thought that was part of the moving the $4 million that we had for a new building, like when we were going into, it was part of the pot that was, went over to the Ditmer.
The total amount was $4 million that was set aside for Wells Fargo. The Ditmer cost was $2 million. That's what's allocated to that project. The purchase price was 1.2 million, leaving about $800,000 for renovation. And the other $2 million has been sitting in this account, and there's about 1.7 million later tonight on on the consent agenda. There's a
reading,
pretty
yes, ma'am.
significant repair to an airport hangar. I think it's about $160,000 that we're also proposing come out of this fund, out of the
Well,
4
aren't you
million.
also asking money for further renovation at Ditmer and at the PBR building?
That's all included in the 2 million and the COPs that were taken out earlier this year.
So that's encompasses with these.
Yeah, so this 1.7 million that's in 9, that's the remainder of those funds after everything that's left.
Mhm. Okay, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Councilor Martinez.
Thanks, Craig. I'm super excited for this renovation. Is the 6 million gonna cover all of the expenses?
So just for the 4 phases that we have earmarked to renovate, yes, we gotta, I think we also included a 10% contingency to make sure we had it a little bit in case of a snafu or something unforeseen. But yeah, we believe that this covers it entirely.
Great.
entirely.
What would be the timeline on those 4 phases?
Depending on how fast we can get the money into the pot and we can get out and do an RFP to get the contractor on board. We have a engineering consultant who is on retainer for our airport already to oversee the majority of the construction. So they are ready to put the bid docs together. They work with our purchasing department and we're ready to put it out on the street, and we'll see. That'll depend on the contractor's availability to see how quick we can get this done. I'm shooting by the end of the year. I think
Okay,
is
that's,
reasonable.
I guess, what I wanted to
Yeah, that's
see.
reasonable.
If it's like by 2027. Okay.
Council Maestro.
And on the half-cent sales tax fund, how does this meet that criteria?
Half-cent sales tax dollars can be used to fund the airport and the industrial park. So in connection with this project, the city is also going to be using the second part of its just transition grant that we're awarded. And we are going to be starting an air mechanic. Brandon, I don't know if you want to give a little bit more of an update on that. We're going to have a classroom out there.
Yeah, so the EDC and OEDIT, they approved the just transition money to go towards an A&T, Air Mechanic and Technician School, partnership with PCC, I believe CAE. And so part of the terminal renovations will be able to provide space if PCC needs it for some classroom space. It'll be announced publicly with all the details, I believe, on January 6th. You'll see something, but the money has been awarded. PCC is going forward with it, and their target timeline to start would be the end of next year. So the fall semester next year to start that program up to train air mechanics at the airport.
So the half-cent sales tax qualifies because of a training center that PCC is going to be putting in there?
And because it's in the industrial park at the airport, that fits the criteria for the half-cent sales tax.
Interesting. Okay, thank you.
Council Latino.
Thank you. Greg, is there anything in this about the traffic control tower? Are we doing any?
So that is not funded by us or city at all, and you will see, you have already seen a right of entry for the leased area that they're proposing to, so doing all their planning, but to clarify a little bit of Mr. Latino's question, the FAA sees value in our airport and our airfield, so they have earmarked, I don't even know the amount, but it's got to be $200 million or so, $150 million to build a brand new air traffic control tower just directly south of its existing location, 200-foot tall, so that it can efficiently see the entirety of the airfield. And they're making an investment in our airfield, I think, because they see the value of what Pueblo Airport means to even the national airspace system. So
I think that's a key because obviously they're getting that in other communities in the state. The new traffic control towers, I know Alamos is getting one. Aspen's got one. And so my concern is Pueblo, Colorado. Growing up, I used to fly in from Santa Fe, New Mexico when I was going to college on Frontier. America West came into Pueblo. The guy that founded America West was raised in Pueblo. And anyway, there's all kinds of potential here for all kinds of things. So good. I'm glad to hear that's going to happen. Thank you.
thank you, sir.
Anybody else? Joe, I'm done. I got a couple of things in reference to, you made a statement about the appearance of appearance and ADA compliance. I don't know how those gel together, but in reference to the amount of money you're asking for, I've got to ask some questions. What is the ADA compliance requirements that you think you have to meet?
So if you can flip on your packet back to the front, proposal of the front there. Currently, we just have a few curb ramps where folks who have wheelchair accessibility or even some mobility issues, they would be able to utilize those specific spots. In the rendering, we're showing sloped sidewalk to street side there transition, so it'll be continuous, and including the bollards there for folks to get up out of the way of potential moving traffic there. So I think that all adds to safety And again, more of a safety-minded approach and memorable travel experience.
Do you have a professional assessment on, or is that your assessment?
This was the architect's
You
assessment of
have,
that.
did you provide that?
So
to us?
the CHQA docs are available. We can get those to you if you'd like to see that.
The
Yeah,
other thing is you talked about it being charming but outdated. And again, I think that's personal perception on your
certainly.
part. I'm just kind of wondering, in reference to the actual passengers, if you're gonna take pictures of your facility, make sure it's crowded, number one. Number two, the pictures you gave us were not good representations if you are that busy. And I'm concerned with the actual number of walking traffic that you have through the facility that would justify this kind of money.
Sure. So we're in a low spot. There is some element of this, build it and they will come, in a sense. I think we see that happening up in our friends at Northern Colorado Regional Airport, where they built their new terminal. And now they're starting to see a little bit more uptick in their United airline flights. Regardless of that, we are an essential air service community. We will always have an airline servicing our community and connecting us to a hub for the foreseeable future, but you know, anything can change there. So the idea that we still have people coming and going through our, again, uneven floors or our potentially outdated infrastructure, we have to be concerned about that. Just again, from a safety standpoint, when we want to, we're the city of Pueblo. We're proud to be who we are. We want to provide a top-notch experience to the folks that choose to support us and fly out of Pueblo.
Do you have any walking traffic numbers that come through the airport that utilize those records?
So in our busiest, we've been 10,000 enplanements, which means 10,000 people have bought their ticket in Pueblo and flown on our airline.
What's
So
the time?
from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m., we are a public building.
Okay, and is this for the entire month?
So that was a year. That was annual. That was an annual enplanement number. And that's just saying people that got on and off the airplane or got on the airplane there. So that doesn't count the people that got off the airplane, came back from Denver. It doesn't count the people that come to our restaurant to utilize that space when it's open and thriving. They'll use the restrooms as well. We see XL trucks, we see Black Hills trucks, we see all sorts of contractors that will park in front of the airport to come in and use the restroom just because they're working out in the industrial park. And the industrial park itself, we provided that restaurant space again for those folks to just take their lunch or to even just come and watch airplanes. So just to try to put an exact number on it is going to be tricky, but it's used. And the fact that we are a public city building, we should be used and safety should be a consideration.
I'm not trying to give you a hard time. I think you try to do as best you can. Your job is to do the best you can for your airport, get as many things. I got that, but our job is to justify.
I appreciate that as well.
This fiscal things that we're getting thrown. So
Certainly.
One other thing, what happened? I'm just trying to straighten out some of the scuttlebutt that I heard about the airport. Is there a guy by the name of Jimmy Spitzer still out there at the hangars? Is he still?
Unfortunately, he's not. No, sir.
Where did he go?
Last I heard, he took another job in town. And I'm only speaking from hearsay and from rumor, but I think he's still affiliated with aviation, but not in his.
Was
in
that
hangar.
voluntary or involuntary?
It was mutual.
Meaning?
He had some things he had to comply with and he decided to not. So
Okay.
I still feel like he is a great friend of our airport and I think I can call him if I needed to and get some advice, which I do. So we are still on speaking terms, if that's helpful. Again, I don't want to divulge too much of his personal information
No, that's fine.
because, yeah,
That's fine.
it's his business.
The only reason I'm asking is because I've had calls on it. And I just wonder what happened to this gentleman's.
We can talk offline if,
For a while.
yeah,
But that's all.
I'd be more than happy to talk offline.
Also, one more thing, in reference to grants that you said, are they coming your way right now? Have you applied for grants?
Yes, we do. We have annual, what's called entitlement grants.
Okay.
Based on our enplanement numbers, which are unfortunately pretty low at the moment. But the FAA has a sliding scale of where they continue to give us funding for safety matters, specifically airports, airside, runway, taxiway infrastructure improvements.
Okay. Anything else, Council? Council Martinez?
Yeah, I mean, we just had the air show literally a couple months ago. Can you imagine if we hosted all of those people at a, brand spanking new, very cool looking airport? Like I feel like this is a no brainer. We're getting those bigger shows. I don't see what the hullabub is about. I think it's great, Greg.
Thank you. To your point, I didn't even count the idea that those folks were coming through our terminal building regularly. The Thunderbird team themselves were hunkered down in the air restaurant space. So all the volunteers gathered in there, people coming in using the restroom as they were walking to and from the gate. So yeah, there was quite a bit of foot traffic for just that event for that weekend.
Okay, is that it? Greg, I think you're good.
Thank you very much,
Thank
folks.
you. Okay, next up is the item agenda D, formal response to fiduciary concerns. Danny Nunn, Director of Finance, a 10-minute presentation.
Good evening, Council, Mayor. This presentation is regarding fiduciary concerns that were brought up by a letter submitted to the clerk's office by Councilor Gomez. He was informed by the Pueblo Development Foundation, acronym PDF, that there was an outstanding balance owed to PDF by the city in the amount of $1.4 million. He brings up that this is a significant fiscal, legal, fiduciary concern. Goes on to express concerns about what this means to the city. He asked that this be made an official city record and asked that this be added to the work session agenda on December 22nd, 2025, due to the urgency of transparency needed for conducting city business. So the presentation that I have prepared tonight addresses the concern. I will recognize that there are $1.4 million worth of invoices, and then I will convey to council why these invoices cannot be paid legally. Let me take a step back here. So the invoices in question are all revolving around the construction of the building at 200 Greenhorn. So this is the facility that is occupied by Boemcor. In June of 2020, council passed ordinance 9712 establishing project ED 2005. In this project, council budgeted and appropriated $5 million from the half-cent sales tax fund. The intent was to have PDF acquire land and construct a shell building as authorized in half-cent sales tax criteria ordinance. So with this 5 million, PDF purchased vacant land for a little under $200,000, which they purchased from the Pedco Foundation to construct this 45,000 square foot shell building. In that contract, PDF was responsible for the construction and were to transfer that property to the city after the successful completion of that project. Part of the agreement also, PDF received a 3% administration fee for the project costs. So if the project had been the full 5 million, that would have been around $150,000 to PDF. The contract explicitly stated if costs exceeded 5 million, that PDF pays the extra and not the city. So now we fast forward to April of 2022 with ordinance 10167. So in April of 22, the construction was completed and the property was deeded back over to the city. So we accepted this. Construction costs came in under 5 million and total 3.84 million. So this was a successful project. It was completed and deeded back over to the city. At this point in time, there were not prospects to take over that particular property. So now we move to August of 2023 with ordinance 10520 and project ED 2303. So PEDCO, our economic development partner, negotiated to bring in Foam Core from, I believe, Michigan. So part of this package deal was to finish out this property at 200 Greenhorn and make this property suitable to be occupied by Foam Core. So in this deal, the city approved $6.5 million for the tenant finish improvements. Part of this contract also, PDF received a 5% admin fee for overseeing the project, which is approximately $325,000. The general contractor performing the tenant finish was not the same GC as for the shell construction project, because this was completely separate. This contract also explicitly stated that if costs exceeded $6.5 million, that PDF would pay the extra and not the city. And I'm going to jump ahead a slide for a moment and show an excerpt of the contract. So the section that I have highlighted is that particular language, which states in the event the costs in the design and construction exceeds the amount specified in section 1, which was the $6.5 million, such cost shall be promptly paid by PDF and not the city. So ultimately, the city did pay PDF $6.5 million, but the project cost that PDF incurred, they went over budget by 1.4 million. I had conversations with a representative of PDF, and I asked the question why this project went over by 1.4 million. I was informed that they were given verbal authorization by George Hippolyte. My response back was at the time that this happened, George was not yet an employee of the city. They then told me that they were given verbal authorization to do this from Deputy City Attorney Bob Jagger, who at the time had temporarily left the city and was working for the city of Colorado Springs. Bob Jagger later on returned to the city, and I was able to ask him his firsthand account, in which he stated, no way and no how would he ever jeopardize his career, nor does he possess the authorization to do so. So in the end, the city has paid exactly 6.5 million and held them to the point that the contract explicitly states that any cost above the contracted amount would be promptly paid by PDF and not the city. So where are we at? So PDF claims the city owes 1.4 million for their cost overruns. The city stance is any payment above the contract needs council approval via a contract amendment and ordinance. So our attorneys have spoken with the attorney for PDF, and this took place the beginning of 2025. And the attorney for PDF agreed also that reimbursements requires formal council action and an amendment to the contract. So where the conversation left the city and PDF was the city giving PDF instructions on what they would have to do in order for the city to be able to pay those costs. And ultimately, that would be a decision of city council, and PDF would have to bring that to the
Disregard.
city for consideration. And again, since that conversation, there has been no follow-up until the letter received by the clerk's office. So in summary, the city has met all financial commitments approved by council. Any additional payments require council approval through a contract amendment via ordinance with a public hearing. Council may choose not to amend the contract, and PDF would have to absorb their cost overruns. But as of right now, no legal authority exists to pay the cost overruns, and payment cannot be issued. This concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to field any questions that council may have.
And Councilor Flores? Did you? I would like to, anybody else have anything they'd like to say? I'd like to just give you some information in reference to this. 8 days later, you got this letter to me today, what you just read, some of the stuff, the comments you've made today. And I put my letter in on the 17th. That's 8 days.
That's not true, Councilor
Well, I have
Gomez.
right
You
here.
have the
There's
letter
no-
that
there's no-
I sent all of city
You're out of,
council
let me finish my
on
comment.
Friday. We're
Let-
not gonna
let me-
attack our
let me
director
finish
saying
my
that
comment.
today
I'm
was the
gonna finish
day.
My comment.
You received it on Friday.
Interrupted. Let me finish my comment. I have, on the 17th, it was stamped and dated when I brought it over to the city clerk. Today, I get this today. There is no date, and it's from you and from Mr. Nunn. There is no date on it. And what I'm saying is, you had 7 or 8 days to put this together. And now I have about 14 or 15 emails directly pointing at you, and you had a lot of information that's not included in this. So I don't think it's fair to you for me to pop out one email after the other, and that would be unfair to you. So what I'm gonna suggest is we take a look at this at a special meeting. This is not the place to do it. This is not a courtroom, but we've got to get the truth out, and we're not getting it right now. That's my opinion. Go ahead, Mr. Nunn.
No, council, I would be happy to entertain any conversation relating this matter. The facts are the facts, and we can speak to them whenever. The timing of the response received by council from the mayor's office, I believe she sent that communication out Friday. I was informed to put together the presentation for work session, which I did.
I'll just finish with this. This is not about whether the city owes the money. That's already established in my mind. This issue is that agenda item D involves a material financial obligation of 1.4 million plus 2 years outstanding owed by the city. Counselors were not provided a background paper or physical analysis. That finance director failed to document why payments were not made, whether the funds were even appropriated, whether the liability appears in the annual comprehensive financial report, the ACFR. What legal exposures and costs exist now for the city? Interest, penalties, litigation. The interest alone of the city's debt obligation to PDF alone is over 100,000. The real question now is whether there are other obligations that are similarly being ignored or being unreasonably delayed. I'm requesting on the record today that the council is properly updated and provided the specifics of any similar outstanding obligations within the next 5 days. This situation has created 3 institutional problems for the council, which relate directly to our fiduciary responsibility. 1, council cannot debate intelligently on these fiscal matters. Number 2, the public record is incomplete. Number three, the council fiduciary duty is being obstructed. And I'd also like to know if we can look at, in reference to the ACFR, a lot of us are not aware, but I've done a little background and read it. But you're going back to 2022, 2023. I didn't ask about any of that in this letter. All I'm trying to find out is where are the payments? Again, I've got emails, and I'd like to sit down with you if you want to, one-on-one, and I'll show you what I have. And it implicates you pretty badly, Mr. Nunn, but I don't want to bring it out here in this forum.
I would be happy to in any forum. So the fact is, there is zero liability from the city, and the invoices are not contractually valid. There is zero obligation from the city. Had I paid these invoices, then I would be looking at serious implications for mismanagement of taxpayer dollars.
You're entitled to what you want to defend yourself with, but I don't think this is the place that we should be deciding this. This is going to take a lot more expertise than I have. All I did was brought forward, okay, in my letter to the city clerk and to the councilors, and as a board member of PDF, and you said I purported, no, I sit on PDF. I have an obligation on that, for the Public Development Foundation. I have an obligation to also respond to them, but I also have I'm on council. That's how this whole thing came about. And all I found out was we were not paying our bills. It's as simple as that. Council Maestri.
I think that this is beyond Mr. Nunn's obligation here. All he did was come forward and explain the ordinances and how they ran, financial and the financials on it. And we all know about change orders. If change orders are not approved, they don't get paid. And that's throughout the industry. We all know that Mr. Hippolyte and Mr. Jagger are a source of approval. An ordinance is a source of approval on a change order. I don't know what PDF is trying to push through, but I think that before we move any further, we should have some sort of discussion that is respectful to all parties involved. And I can truly understand why you would be in trouble if you paid those change orders and they had not been approved. There are no contingencies on this, correct? There isn't a contingency fund. And even if there was a contingency fund, you still need a change order approval. And so, unfortunately, as counselors, just like as any leader in this city, and when you're tied to a board, and when you're tied to representing the citizens, people come to you with information and subject matter that isn't always truly correct, or there's just different sides to it. And I think we can place that as a different side matter here. And but as far as the legal behind it, Mr. Nunn is not obligated to discuss any of that. That would come from our city attorneys, and that always comes in executive session and legal opinions. So I'm satisfied.
Councilor Martinez.
Yeah, thanks. Mr. Gomez, did you say that you sit on PDF's board?
Yes.
We've had monthly board and commission updates that you have facilitated for the whole year. Why haven't you given any sort of PDF?
I've only been to
update?
2 meetings. That was it. And I was at this last meetings when this was all confirmed. And I put my concerns on paper on the 17th. I got this information today, 8 days later, in his response.
Well, the mayor sent it out on Friday.
Well, we always get things late.
It's
always
not late when it's on Friday. We have.
Okay,
30 days.
whatever. Okay.
If it's I guess I'm just confused because if you sat on the board the whole year.
I didn't say I sat on the board for the whole year. You didn't listen. I said 2 meetings.
Don't talk to me like that.
Well,
Mr.
I'm
Gomez.
just you're being incorrect.
You're interrupting her.
Counselor Mayor, excuse me, Mayor, do you have anything else you want to add?
I
We
just,
gotta move along because we have another meeting to go to.
I just want to note, Counselor Gomez, in your letter that you submitted on Wednesday afternoon, these
Right.
were your requests. Distribute this notice to all members of city council as soon as practicable so that each counselor is formally apprised of the matter, which happened that day. Enter this correspondence into the official city record, including retention by your office for purposes of transparency. That happened. That's why it's stamped. Notify any required executive or administrative contracts consistent with your duties that council oversight has been formally triggered regarding this issues. You have no oversight. You are the city council, not the mayor. Prepare for
Excuse
inclusion.
me? Say
You,
that again?
you do not oversee contracts. That is not within your purview as a city council. That's my purview. Prepare for inclusion of this matter on a future council agenda, noting that the next regularly scheduled meeting is December 22nd, in which we're here tonight to present this work session. You received my communication, this letter, Friday morning, along with every ordinance. One of them was 51 pages for the contract for PDF, in which they state that they will pick up any additional costs if over. There are no further discussions. There is no debt owed. This is a project from 2023. It is soon to be 2026. This contract has been paid per the city's obligation. This is a business that is up and running and has been for a year and a half. I don't understand why you need further investigation or why you just can't simply understand what's being presented to you.
You finished?
Yeah.
Okay. What you're talking about, this is your point of view, then we have Pedco or PDF has to respond. And all I keep on saying is the blurring of the PDF with Pedco constantly from this council, in these chambers, and they're not the same organization. Number two, I don't work for you. Either does any councilor up here. Okay, we work for the people, and I've gotten too many questions that are on what is going on with the payments for this company.
The payments have
PDF.
been made.
That's your, I would like to get.
That's what the
I
contract said,
think we have
Counselor.
to go to a special meeting to.
I don't
meeting.
think so.
Well, that's fine, but you don't run this. We do.
You don't.
we-
You don't oversee the
Speak-
contracts in the city. This
we oversee
obligation has been paid. There is no further debt, Councilman Gomez. That
Council-
is what I'm saying.
I understand. I appreciate your point of view, but I don't work for you.
You don't need to. You just need to
Councilman,
understand what the
anything else?
contract says.
Council Meister, give you a letter.
Just thought of it. Are there any liens on this building?
To my knowledge, no.
Are there any contractors that are owed money from either PDF or the city?
To my knowledge, I do not believe so.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilor Boston.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As you stated, I don't think this is the time or the place for this, even though you requested this to be here tonight. So I think we should adjourn this meeting, come back with an executive session or another meeting where this is more appropriate.
I agree. Councilor Meister, anything else? Michelle, I don't know.
No.
Councilor Tino, you have anything?
No,
Okay,
one thing for sure though.
turn your mic on.
One thing for sure, we have the responsibility in serving this community, but also as the legislative branch of in this city, we can veto anything that the mayor puts forth with 5 votes. We can do that. So I think people need to understand that the same as a legislative body in Colorado or in Washington, DC, that formality exists in this community. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anybody have anything else? We've now got 7, what time is it? 7. And we'll be, Mr. 7:12, Mr. Aliff is not here yet. So let's adjourn and come back at what, 7:30? We'll go from that point on. All right. So at 7:30, we'll make it. Because he'll give him enough time. He may have some issues. He's trying to come from the hospital. Oh, he's here now.